The raid killed 9 civilians, but the officers involved acted with, quote, bravery and resourcefulness. That was the conclusion of a 100-page report the Israeli military conducted into its own planning of an operation on the Mavi Marmara.
In this inquiry, we found that there were some professional mistakes regarding both the intelligence and the decision-making process and some of the operational mistakes. But also we did find some of very positive findings, and one of them that should be emphasized is the very professional and courageous way that the Israeli commando behaved.
In the days prior to the flotilla's arrival, the report cites a series of mistakes that contributed to a messy confrontation. That was put down to a failure on the part of the intelligence services, who didn't alert military commandos about the threat the activists posed on board the ship. But when it came to the actual conduct of Israeli soldiers, the report found no wrongdoing. In fact, it stated that the Navy commando soldiers operated properly with professionalism, bravery and resourcefulness, and that the commanders exhibited correct decision-making. The report further determines that the use of live fire was justified and that the entire operation is estimable. International rights organizations disagree. They point out that the military cannot be trusted to conduct a fair and thorough investigation into the actions of its own soldiers. Footage that's been released since the deadly raid, as well as testimonies from the hundreds of activists and journalists on board, show, argue rights groups, that soldiers acted disproportionately given the level of resistance they faced and what the activists had at their disposal to use against the soldiers. A separate committee set up by the Israeli government and headed by former Chief Justice Tokel has been set up to look at whether Israel breached international law during the raid. But the committee has already been criticized for having a limited mandate that doesn't allow panelists to question soldiers actually involved in the operation. From day one of the raid, Israel has been unapologetic about the actions of its soldiers. That's why it's not surprising that the report criticizes the planning and not the execution of the raid. For those hoping that the report would hold individual soldiers and their superiors to account, it will prove hugely disappointing. Sherine, Tadros, Al Jazeera, West Jerusalem.